Welcome back. Duncan Holder back at you on a Tuesday. Kind of a hot and humid Tuesday here in the great city of New Orleans. I'm Jeff Duncan, your host for the next 2 hours alongside Clyde Verdun. Is that right, Clyde?
Guess who's back? Back again.
Back on track. And no Larry Holder today, so we're still not back at full throttle. We haven't been full throttle for, what, about a couple weeks now?
Yeah, a couple weeks now. It's been a makeshift almost a rotating set of people in all these chairs, but it's been good though. I mean, we'll get back on track here, and I'm sure in the next week or so, and then go into the dog days of summer.
Well, Larry's not here in person. Our co-host Larry Holder is on assignment in Atlanta, Georgia. He's over there for the NFL spring meetings. The owners all gather every spring somewhere in America, usually at some ritzy 5-star hotel, a Ritz-Carlton, something like that. But they're over in Atlanta to decide on the next 2 available Super Bowls. The 2023 Super Bowl, which reportedly is going to go to Phoenix, Arizona, and the 2024 Super Bowl, which looks like, from all accounts, it's going to be New Orleans back in the Super Bowl mix. And Larry's going to report on that. All that's going to go down tomorrow, but he's going to check in with us in the top of the second hour, the 11 o'clock hour, give us a report from the NFL owners meetings. And during the first hour, very happy to be joined for the first time at 10:30 by one of my good friends in the business and one of the true treasures of New Orleans sports, Bob Remy, the foremost sports historian on New Orleans and Louisiana sports in this city, a longtime lead statistician for the New Orleans Saints and New Orleans Hornets, Jazz, and Pelicans. He's called, I guess, done the stats for all 3 NBA teams. And Bob's going to check in with us at 10:30 to give us his thoughts on Billy Cannon, the passing, of course, of the great LSU great last Friday. And Bob had some most recent memories of interactions with Billy Cannon on some book tours and sports memorabilia tours. And I want to talk to Bob about that and also about some other things that he's got in the mix, get his thoughts on the New Orleans Pelicans and basketball. Can it become a basketball town? Clyde, that's something you and I have talked about a lot, and I think Bob will have great insight on that because he's followed it all the way back to way back when the Jazz first started, and he has some great memories about that, and I think some keen insights. And as always, we want your thoughts, want your participation. 504-260-1280 is the number to call if you want to check in. And we're going to talk NBA playoffs right off the bat here. Clyde, I didn't get to see the game. Let me tell you what happened to me. So I'm still on this European clock.
Oh, I'm sure.
And it is killing me. So I got home last night, went for a run, got back, was preparing for dinner to watch the game, and just completely zonked out on the couch. I woke up, the game was over because I'm on that France time. My body clock hasn't adjusted. So I missed the entire game. Had to immediately try to catch up on the internet, but it looks like it was a LeBron James show.
It was 100%. We talked about LeBron James before. We all kind of went on our various breaks and whatnot, and you got to hand it to Cleveland. A lot of people said, a lot of the analysts said that even though the Celtics went up 2-0 in the series, the Cavaliers were by no means out of it, and that's what happens when you have arguably the best player in the world on your team. You're never going to really be out of a series, even after those first 2 games. It looked like the Cavaliers are going to be swept out of the building. But no, LeBron James, he drops in 44 points. He was 17-28 from the field yesterday. Took over in the clutch, but really it wasn't just him. It was guys like Kyle Korver. Kyle Korver came through. Tristan Thompson, really the guys who have been there the longest with LeBron James during these past few NBA Finals runs were the guys that helped take over and were the guys that helped keep the Celtics off from making a really huge comeback. And really it started on the defensive end. I mean, that was one of the biggest things that LeBron James talked about last night was the fact that, Kyle Korver, who's 37 years old, Kyle Korver, he's going up for block shots. He's diving for loose balls on the ground. I mean, he's going up against these dudes who are 20, 21, 18, 19 years old, bring that kind of veteran presence and bring that defensive structure that the Cavaliers so desperately need in this series. That was one of the big points. And then Tristan Thompson went from being a guy throughout this entire length of the playoffs who, at this point, all of us were talking about his off the court life more than his on the court life.
Right.
He was a absolutely bruising force in the paint for the Cavaliers on both defense and offense. They were running the floor really well, and I mean, again, that really goes and a testament to the Cavaliers being able to understand the weight of the moment. And it's going to be interesting to see how the rest of this series goes, because I mean, we're talking about the Cavs, who have been so on the road, and the Celtics, who have been awful on the road in this playoff series. And it's going to be which team is going to either win on the road. I don't think. I mean, after looking at this series, I think there are only two ways this happens, and it's everybody whole serve and the Celtics win in 7, or LeBron and co are going to win either Game 5 in Boston in a couple nights, and they come back and win it and close out in Game 6. That's the only way I see this series going.
You know, you have to admit, I mean, this has been kind of a lack of drama in these conference finals. I mean, every game's been a blowout for the most part. I don't think any game has had a game-winning shot even close to it. Most every game's been decided by double digits. They haven't even been close for the most part in the fourth quarter. I know that the other night, I guess last night, Cleveland kind of Boston made a little bit of a run, got down to 7.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, we're talking 7 points, and it quickly turned back around for Cleveland. But these games have been blowouts. There's been not much competition between the two teams, and I fully expect Golden State to take care of business tonight.
Oh yeah,
Houston in Golden State.
Oh yeah, I mean, and that's the unfortunate thing is that. But I mean, this is kind of what we knew was going to happen once we got to the conference finals, except for Toronto somehow walking
Houston
into this.
Play a little closer than they're playing. I mean, 40 points. You lose about 40.
Yeah. But I mean, But you know what's crazy about that series is that we've talked about the Warriors in every series so far setting some kind of playoff franchise record or setting some kind of NBA playoff record, because they've done it. I'm pretty sure against every team so far. They've done it against the Spurs. They did it to the Pelicans, and they've now done it to the 62 game winning Houston Rockets, which is unfathomable. But it just goes to show how different and how strong this Warriors team is. They're gonna close out. They're gonna close out tonight.
Curry.
Yeah,
they got Curry.
Well, they've got Curry. They've got Kevin Durant. Man, I think
what I mean is when they get him back, they become the best team in the league.
And when he's playing at 100% or he's playing at maximum efficiency, it is hard to stop them at any point. But there's a lot of things last night or 2 nights ago in Game 3 in Golden State that I think shows what the problem is for the Rockets and what their problem is going to be going forward if they don't correct it, i.e. they can't have so much ISO ball with James Harden. They cannot have that. They've got to do a better job of limiting his possessions to where he's dribbling the ball at the top of the key, looking to make something happen, because they need some kind of scoring, because that's limiting the chances they have to really not only keep Golden State at bay, but at the same time get other guys involved. They have to get Clint Capella involved. They're going to have to get Chris Paul involved. Eric Gordon's got to do a better job. The guys off the bench, Ryan Anderson, Trevor Ariza, those guys have got to do a better job of being involved. And James Harden can't hold the ball, or else they're going to lose by 50. Because that's what's going to happen tonight in Golden State if they don't do a better job of playing defense and they don't get any kind of production from someone not named James Harden.
Well, I think it's certainly a study of contrasting styles. We all know the Warriors are one of the best, if not the best, passing teams in the league. They average, I forget what the average amount of passes they have in a game, but it's well into 3 digits. And Houston, like you said, has long lived on the isolation game with James Harden and Chris Paul, and that only is going to take you so far. It's been one of the criticisms of Mike D'Antoni and his coaching style. It's great in the regular season. You get in the playoffs, you get against a really good team, and you got to share the basketball. I mean, we all know the Rockets have guys that can score, but they have to score within the context of team play.
Right.
And a great defensive series so far for Golden State. You have to give that team credit because they're known for their offense, but when they want to lock you down on defense, they have great strategists in Steve Kerr and his staff, and they've done a good job of making it hard for Houston.
And it's not a surprise that these conference finals have been what they are. These are clearly the 4 best teams in the league right now. These are the 4 teams that have the most to gain and the most to lose at the same time. Because if you're Boston feels like they have a legitimate shot to get past this Cavaliers team, and they do not want to lose this Cavaliers team in the finals, knowing that a chance to get to the NBA finals is on the line. And really, honestly, unfortunately for them, the team that wins out of the West is going to be the team that wins the NBA championship, and it's going to be the Warriors. There's no stopping this Warriors team. This Warriors team is as close to the newest dynasty that we've gotten since the Since the Lakers of the early 2000s, this team is just so unstoppable on so many levels. It's going to be interesting to see how going forward, every other NBA team is going to do whatever they can to try to stop Golden State again. And every time it seems like someone gets close, maybe Cleveland, maybe Boston, whoever, they end up coming right back and going full throttle. They didn't even need to win 73 games this year, and they're still a loaded team that looks nearly invincible and impenetrable during the most important time, which is in the NBA playoffs.
Well, I think that Boston next year, when they get Gordon Hayward and Kyrie Irving back, will be a formidable challenger to them.
Yeah.
I do think that's the best shot anybody's going to have at knocking them off, because I don't think Houston, I agree with you, I don't think they've got what it takes to knock them off. All right, let's take our first break. When we come back, we'll talk a little college baseball. The conference baseball tournaments get in action today. Both Tulane and the American Athletic Conference is getting ready. Actually, in about a half hour or so, they're going to be playing against Houston, and also the LSU Tigers in a big, big game in Hoover, Alabama against Mississippi State in the SEC's tournament. We'll talk a little bit about that. Also discuss some Saints moves. They've got a few moves, kind of minor roster moves. We'll discuss some other news items when we come back from this first break here on the Dunc and Holder Show. You're listening to Sports 1280, NOLA.com, the iHeartRadio app. Stay with us. So I need to know if Larry was useless to him.
Well, what?
Who else got laid off? I know Keith Marzalek, Marianne, which killed me because Marianne does everything.
Yeah.
Travis, the advertising guys, and Jim Raper. Those are the four people I know.
Yeah, those are the four. When I'm gonna say those are the only four I know.
We just don't know, like other buildings.
Yeah, and then I guess over in East Jeff and in St. Tammany.
Okay.
But like, yeah, Larry said he says Marcus told him it was up like 20 people total.
Was it 20?
Yeah.
I mean, I kind of had word that because I talked to Tim before I left, Williamson, and he said something cryptic like, "Yeah, a lot of long-time people are gonna be let go on the business side." He goes, "Changers coming to the business side." So I just assumed I thought maybe Debbie Holzenthal might be in trouble.
Yeah, right.
Because she kind of got pushed aside for this Alicia.
Yeah.
You know?
And that's the thing too, man. It's the idea that we moved into this building. Now we've downsized that way. We've downsized before. We're downsizing again to restructure. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make any sense.
When I had dinner in France with James O'Byrne, and he said he thought this did make sense, this last round. He said basically the new houses just don't want to lose money. He said they're not going away. It's not going to they're not abandoned. He said they're just tired of losing millions. So they're getting it down to where we break even, they'll just leave it alone.
Gotcha.
So I'm like, okay,
Okay.
let's see. If they just break, if we got, this is what it's going to be now, and they're going to start making money a little bit to get us to break even, then I'll be fine. But
Okay.
Jesus Christ, man.
Yeah, good Lord.
There's been another round of cuts.
And how many can you continue to have before you're spread so thin that you have no other choice but to do anything else?
Right. Welcome back. Jeff Duncan, Clyde Verdun, Dave DeCorbier here at the iHeartRadio studios in downtown New Orleans, Louisiana. And we are talking college baseball during this segment. We'll get into a little of New Orleans Saints discussion. But first off, we want to talk about what's in the news right away, and that is college baseball. Here in about 35 minutes or so, our pal Todd Graffinini will have the call of the Tulane Green Wave as they start their quest to get back in the postseason again. They play the Houston Cougars in the American Athletic Conference. Where's that at? Is that in Clearwater?
Yes, that was out in Clearwater, Florida.
Clearwater, Florida. And later today, LSU opens the SEC tournament action against Mississippi State at 4:30. I'm not sure where you can catch that game. You can probably catch it on like ESPN3, I'm assuming, or SEC
The SEC Network televises every game up until the semifinals and finals, which one might be on ESPN2 and the other one might be on ESPN. I'm not sure. But the SEC Network will have every game throughout the week, and then it'll move to the big ESPNs on Saturday and Sunday. So you'll be able to watch that game this afternoon on the SEC Network.
Well, I thought it was interesting that Coach Maneri, who he picked to start this game, it's Bush, right? And Bush started.
Yes, Bush is the scheduled starter. Yes.
Yeah. So I thought it was interesting his strategy for that, knowing that this is, I don't want to call it an elimination game, but it's a must-win game for LSU to try and kind of save this season, salvage this season, maybe get hot, go on a run here.
Yeah.
Hadn't been their year so far.
Yeah. Well, I mean, at this point, it's kind of like, a lot of our guys have been reporting, obviously, Brody Miller and Andrew, they've been, obviously really getting into the details of what this team really is looking to do. And the biggest thing for them is they need to get a couple wins, not just because of the NCAA tournament. They should be fine either way. Now, granted, I think you win today and I think it's fine. You lose and you're going to be on a very, very uncomfortable seat for a week going into next Monday when the NCAA selection field is announced. But Bush being the starter is exactly what you would kind of expect, because at this point they got to get a win. They've got to get on a good start, and the SEC tournament has been a favorable place for them. They love playing in Hoover. Something about playing in Hoover for LSU baseball is like the sun for Superman. Like, they find some kind of extra gear, and they love playing in that ballpark. The ballpark plays big enough, but they somehow seem to find a way to crank home runs in that place. But I think it's going to come down to how they handle their pitching staff and how they handle their bullpen. And the biggest thing specifically is, and maybe Bush today, are you going to go with Hilliard on Wednesday probably, or Tuesday or Wednesday? And then how do you use the rest of your pitching staff and bullpen throughout the rest of this tournament run? Because you have to think about today, and I know Paul Maneri said they're going to throw caution to the wind, and it's just about taking it one game at a time, but you have to at least have some kind of plan in place going towards saying, if we want to make a run, I have to at least have some ideas about how I want to see the rest of this go. But from what we've seen from LSU this year, it's a Jekyll and Hyde team. If they come out and start well, then it's going to bode well. If they unfortunately come out and look a little shaky and Mississippi State gets a lead first, then it's going to be an interesting day.
Well, it's been a while since LSU has missed the NCAA tournament. I think 2011 was the last time. That's amazing. We all know the tradition and history of LSU baseball, but we all anticipated this would be a little bit of a transition year. They lost so much from last year's team.
So many injuries this year, too.
Yeah, and injuries compiled that. Exacerbated that issue. But Paul Maneri, I think, is certainly the guy in charge to get this team kind of back on track if they're going to do it. I have full faith and confidence that he's going to pull the right trigger and knows what's best for his team. And you never know, man. Postseason baseball, just teams get hot, a few balls drop in, you get the right calls on pitches, and all of a sudden you get hot. And LSU certainly is battle tested in these kind of games. Yeah,
and obviously Bush got him, turned into. If you read any of our stories over the weekend for the last series, Paul Maneri wasn't sure who he was going to go with in the series, and he turned to Bush, and Bush ended up getting a win that they desperately needed in the last weekend of the year. So this may actually be a very good start for them, because you will have Zach Hess, you will have AJ Labus, and then you will have Mikhail Hilliard also in the stable. And at this time, for as much as the SEC tournament and the postseason is about pitching, it's also about getting timely hits. timely hits, bringing guys in with runners in scoring position are two of the biggest keys for teams that advance, because they know the situations. They understand that when they have these chances of getting guys on base, whether it's by free pass, whether it's by getting the timely hit, or whatever it may be, bringing those guys in is the most important thing.
And switching gears to Tulane, Keegan Gile, I guess it's Gillis, I should say, I'm probably butchering his pronunciation. He's a sophomore right-hander. He's going to get the start for Tulane against Houston. Aaron Fletcher will earn the start, left-hander for the Cougars. And Tulane has played one of the toughest schedules in the country. I think the 9th ranked strength of schedule in all of college baseball. And I think they're the second highest ranked team in the RPI with a losing record. So the record doesn't look good, but that's somewhat a byproduct of the schedule they played. The American Athletic Conference is always tough, and Tulane is not shied away in their non-conference schedule.
Right.
But that can be tough when you're trying to kind of rebuild a little bit. We knew that Travis Jewett's team this year was going to be a little bit up against it. So it's not been the banner baseball season we thought. Even Louisiana, Lafayette, I guess, has not been quite what we thought they might be. I think Southeastern's had a good season. We've had a bunch of good teams, as always, but no real, I think, national title threat this season.
Well, and I mean, I think the thing about baseball, though, specifically in college baseball, and we've seen this over the course of the last 15, 16 years, is that it really, honestly, when it comes down to the postseason, it's not really about, I mean, obviously the name across the front of your shirt, the front of your jersey is going to be a big thing, and it really does give you the confidence of being able to say that you can go in any place and win. But with teams like Fresno State, Coastal Carolina,
Yep.
Stony Brook.
It happens every year.
It happens every year. There's going to be
smaller schools.
and I think that again shows the disbursement of quality talent that aren't going to these Power 5 schools, that are going to mid-majors. Maybe if they start at a Power 5 school but end up at a mid-major, however you get there, the wealth of talent in the sport of college baseball is really starting to spread out in ways that I think if you look at a heat map of it, it's a little bit more aqueous to a lot of different parts of the country that a lot of people not necessarily wouldn't think about. Like, it used to be California, Texas, Louisiana, Florida, deep south. Now you're seeing a mid-east, a midwest, Pacific Northwest kind of thing. And you're seeing the shift of
Louisville. Did you forget about Louisville?
Yeah, I didn't forget about Louisville. Louisville's in that mid-east weird kind of area. Yeah, well, I mean, I don't think are we contractually obligated to do that? I don't think so.
No.
I didn't think so either. But a school like Louisville, like even in the ACC, which is jumping to the ACC has made them that much better as well, because they are such a strong baseball conference. When it comes down to this part of the year, if you get into your conference tournament and you go on a run that helps increase the level of confidence you have in your team and in yourself and your staff, there's literally no team in the country that can stop you from being able to make a decent run. And I think Coastal Carolina was the ballpoint pin that shattered the glass, because no one thought that Coastal Carolina, a team in the SoCon, was going to make a run all the way to the College World Series and then win the College World Series title. I mean, we're talking about a mid-major. I mean, we're not talking about like the Rices of the world under Wayne and Graham. We're talking about Coastal Carolina. So that is where I think the essence of why fans love college baseball, why it is that way. Because once you get to this time of the year, you're watching your conference tournament, and then once you hopefully have a team that gets into the NCAA tournament, is all systems go. Anybody who is playing the highest and playing the best has a chance to win the national championship.
There's no doubt about that. It seems like, though, those teams that do catch fire, one of two things happens. Either they have one dominant pitcher, some kind of stopper that allows you to get a leg up in this kind of tournament style of play that is emblematic of college baseball, or they just have a great lineup and things start falling into place. They hit a lot of seeing eye hits and they win with their offense. But I'm not sure that any of our teams have anybody like that this year. There's really no dominant pitchers or overwhelming offensive presence. But we'll see. That's why they play the games. And it all starts today in college baseball. All right, let's take another break. Come back and talk to Bob Remy, one of my favorite people in the New Orleans sports scene. We'll talk about Billy Cannon, about Larry Bird. He's got an interesting pamphlet, kind of statistical pamphlet he's put out on Larry Bird and his great night he had in New Orleans back about 28 years ago, as a matter of fact. And we'll talk to Bob about that and a bunch of other subjects when we come back here on Dunc and Holder, Sports 1280, NOLA.com, the iHeartRadio app. Stay with us. So Bob's got on his Facebook page, he's got a copy. Like I told you, he's got all this shit in his house.
Mm-hmm.
He's got a T-shirt. I might have to ask him if I could get it from him. Of the Times-Picayune front page back when they thought the Timberwolves were coming to New Orleans.
Yeah. Oh wow.
It says this was the front page. I don't know if you can see it or not. Got him.
Got him. Oh
It's
wow.
like a New Orleans Timberwolves.
Oh, that's crazy.
And of course, we're wrong.
Well,
Imagine that. I mean,
imagine that,
how
right?
You got to be to freaking put a front page out of the paper back. Back
Yeah,
in the
right.
days when, like, that shit just didn't happen.
No.
When they put T-shirts together, I love it.
Get the fuck out of here.
All right, bud. All right. Yeah, we'll ask him about the. I mean, Larry and I kind of got a little bit of discussion yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
Is that the greatest play, with Billy Cannon's return, the greatest play in LSU history? I mean, what would have been
The Bluegrass Miracle? I mean, are we talking like individual?
Well, yeah, play.
Yeah, individual. It's probably Cannon. Like if you're talking about like absolutely improbable, there's no way.
Of it.
Yeah.
Significance was bigger than.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Like the Bluegrass Miracle wasn't really that big, was it? Didn't really
It wasn't that big, but it ended up being just like how crazy of an improbable play that was. I mean,
it didn't lead to like a national title.
it didn't lead to a national title or anything, but it wait, what?
Weren't they like not that good that year? Am I thinking of?
Well, it's not that they were not that good. It's just that they were coming off winning they were either coming off winning the Sugar Bowl or they win the national championship. I don't know, look it up. But I mean that Bluegrass Miracle was still a really, really insane play that happened.
I know. Hey, look, I loved it. They beat Kentucky.
Yeah, I was saying they beat Kentucky.
Welcome back, and pleased to be joined now on Dunc and Holder, making his debut appearance. We should have had you on a long time earlier than this, Bob, but welcome in Bob Remy, longtime sports historian and longtime lead statistician for the Saints, Jazz, Pelicans, Hornets. Bob, how many years do you go back being on the stat crew? My goodness. So you've seen a lot in your time on the New Orleans sports scene, and I know first we wanted to visit with you briefly about Billy Cannon, because obviously the great LSU and NFL legend, passing away last Friday in St. Francisville at the age of 80. And I know you had an appreciation for his great career and everything that he meant to the local sports scene. And you had a chance. When's the last time you spent any time with Billy Cannon? Right. Mm-hmm. Huh. We're talking to Bob Remy, longtime New Orleans and Louisiana sports historian and longtime lead statistician for the Saints, Pelicans, Jazz, going way back here. And Bob, you have great insight on all things kind of New Orleans sports and Louisiana sports. And I'm curious, we had a little discussion on the show yesterday with my co-host Larry Holder about where that great return, of course, the Halloween night return against Ole Miss, where that ranks. It has to be one of the, not only the great plays in the history of LSU football, but I would say one of the great plays in the history of Louisiana sports, don't you think? Yeah, he was a tremendous all-around athlete. Other sports as well. Wasn't just a great football player, but did it all across the board, and certainly will be remembered. And you're going to go to the funeral tomorrow down in Baton Rouge. Yeah, I'm sure it'll be a great turnout. All right, Bob, I want to switch gears with you because I know we talked recently about, I guess, with the NBA playoffs going on right now and the Boston Celtics trying to make a run back to the finals. It's kind of conjured up some memories of when Larry Bird came to town. And I have to be honest with you, this was before my time in New Orleans, but you've put together a little kind of statistical pamphlet, memories of that night. It was 1985 in March, right? March 15th, is that what it was? So explain to the listeners what happened, because I wasn't familiar with this, but the Boston Celtics played against the Atlanta Hawks in New Orleans at Lakefront Arena, and it was a memorable night in New Orleans basketball history. No, they're not going to think New Orleans. Well, that night, was he just on fire? I mean, what are your memories of that night? And you did something similar for Pete Maravich a few years back, and of course, you know, he had that incredible 68-point night in 1977 against the Knicks. So it was a very similar kind of experience where the guy was just in the zone and no one could stop him. Pete was going to get his. He was not shy. Well, last thing, Bob, before we let you go, I wanted to ask you, because you've been here long enough to know the history of New Orleans fan base, and this was an old baseball town. Obviously, supported baseball back in the days with the Pelicans, and has long supported horse racing out the fairgrounds. But we get a lot of calls here, Clyde and I, from fans and listeners about the interest in the Pelicans. I mean, do you think this is or can be a basketball town? It's always going to be a football town first and foremost. The Saints are always going to dominate. But do you think there's enough support that can make this a basketball city? Well, that goes without saying. Long as this team wins, it looks like they're going to win for the foreseeable future. An interesting offseason ahead for the Pelicans, and what the decision is going to be with Rajon Rondo and also DeMarcus Cousins. But we might get you back on in the future, Bob, to talk a little bit about some of the other things you've got in the works. I mean, your house out in Metairie, by the way, if you haven't seen Bob's collection of sports memorabilia, what are you going to do with all that stuff, by the way, all that memorabilia and everything? You have just a huge yard sale one day and pawn off all that, or donate it? All right, Bob. Well, thanks so much for joining us. It's a long time coming. Really appreciate your insight and your thoughts on Billy Cannon and Larry Bird's memorable night. All right, that's Bob Remy, longtime sports historian here in New Orleans, Louisiana. And look, Bob has seen it all. He's been at courtside or up in the press box at the Superdome and Tulane Stadium for almost every New Orleans Saints, New Orleans Pelicans, New Orleans Jazz. I mean, I would argue he's probably seen more sporting events than just about anybody in New Orleans over the years, because of his status as the lead statistician. And if you go out to his house in Metairie, right out near Kenner, he's got like stat books. I mean, he's got a treasure trove of documents, game books, photographs. It's just an amazing sight. And I think more and more, you and I were talking off the air, Clyde, mm-hmm. more and more people sometimes in this day and age, we forget about the history of the sport. And someone like Bob certainly has a great grasp of what current and past events, where they fit into the spectrum of sports history. So we're going to take another break. When we come back, we'll talk a little New Orleans Saints, Clyde and I, along with Dave DeCorbier here, Duncan Holder, Sports 1280, NOLA.com, the iHeartRadio app. Stick with us. I should have opened it up with you.
No, it's all good. It's all good. No, it's totally fine. No, I mean, I think hearing from him was the most important thing, and I think we got that for sure.
All right, bud.
Products
All right. Welcome back, Jeff Duncan, Clyde Berdan, and the missing Larry Holder, who's over in Atlanta, Georgia, at the NFL owners' meetings. He's going to check in with us in about 10 minutes or so from the NFL owners' meetings, give us a report. It's kind of a quiet day over there today. All the action will take place tomorrow, at least most of the votes. And the big news that's going to come out of those meetings is that New Orleans will get the 2024 Super Bowl, and we're back in the mix, which is good news. And the New Orleans Saints will be back in the mix today. I think they start OTAs today. Am I right about that?
Yeah, I think you're right.
Start today on the 22nd, and we'll also be back in action on the 24th. OTAs, that's the dumbest, by the way, phrase ever invented. Can't they come up with something? It's practice, right?
Or, I mean, you're not happy with organized training activities?
No. I think it's organized team activity.
Whatever.
Organized team activity. Why do we need 3 words for practice?
Because legalese is a lot easier put these things in contracts.
I don't know. It's practice. The Saints are practicing. It's basically what's going on. And look, this stuff gets so covered now, and I don't want to, go into my Debbie Downer, which I always tend to do.
Don't worry. Larry gave us a full heads up before I left about you doing this when you came back. So go ahead.
It drives me crazy. Here we are in the middle of May, and everybody's like trying to it's the saturation coverage of the NFL. Back when I started on the beat, and I'm sounding like the old man that I am, but when you started, we covered these things, but it wasn't like 24/7, every breathless move that's taken, every out route that's run. We're trying to speculate on what this means to a team that doesn't start playing a real significant game until September. It's just the way it is. I saw the other
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a full-scale rant. Yes, you can play that background music as I rant on the coverage of an NFL team in the middle of May when they don't play a game that means anything till September. And I can go back and look at the coverage of past OTAs or practices in the middle of May and see how foolhardy they were when we're covering some young receiver that has a good day at practice, and then he's not even on the team when training camp gets going. That's where we're at, Clyde, in this crazy world of sports coverage.
Well,
I mean, yesterday Tom Brady not being at practice was the lead story on ESPN.
Hey, man, that's Tom Brady.
I understand that, but does anybody really think he's not going to be there when the season starts? Does anybody really think that it's going to have any effect whatsoever on the games that are played? So what's the point? I don't get it. But that's where we're at. So we have to cover it. We have to talk about it. But the New Orleans Saints did make some moves. Now that I'm off my soapbox, thanks, Dave. They did make some moves this past week. Sent some guys from tryout camp. I guess they had some veteran tryouts. And look, you tend to roll your eyes sometimes at these moves because they make so many of them. But sometimes they pay off. They found Kyrie Robinson, of course, a running back a few years ago, in this exact same way, and he ended up contributing to the team. And Billy Miller, the tight end that ended up being on their, I think it was on their Super Bowl team. Billy Miller was a veteran tryout guy that made the roster. And so you can't totally disregard these signings. They signed defensive tackle Jay Bromley, who was a former third-round draft pick of the New York Giants just 4 years ago. So this is a guy that had some credentials. And then Michael Ola, offensive lineman, they're going to play him at guard. And that's an area that they needed to bolster. This team needed some depth along both lines, along the interior of both lines. So both these signings make perfect sense. Hopefully these guys don't have to become key players, but you got to have depth, you got to have experience, especially along the lines, because we saw a year ago, look how many guys went down along the offensive line. If the Saints did not have Sinio Calamenti and Ryan Ramczyk, they would have been in big trouble.
Right. I think that's something that Larry and I were talking about before I left to go on a little bit of a break. Was the idea that we were talking about his column on the linebacking core.
Yes.
And we were talking about how for the first time in a while it seems like the linebacking core actually has a lot of quality depth, and regardless of where they play, they have people to step in. This looks like another one of those moves to say, you have to expect that someone is going to go down, and you have to have quality replacements behind them.
Yeah, you got to have veteran guys. You can't have
veteran quality guys who know what what the costs in the game are to where they are not surprised by anything that gets thrown at them.
Yeah, they're not going to be big-eyed when the full lights come on. All right, hour 1 in the books. Hour 2 right around the corner. We'll hear from Larry Holder at the top of the hour. I want to thank Bob Remy for checking in, 10:30. Great insight on Billy Cannon and on Larry Bird's big night here about 33 years ago. And we'll come back at the top of the hour and we'll talk a little NFL owners meetings with Larry Holder. We'll also get into some more NBA playoff talk. I want to get Clyde's thoughts on DeMarcus Cousins. Dunc and Holder, Sports 1280, NOLA.com, the iHeartRadio app. We'll be back right after this.
Necklace. $1 million.
So I read that interview. He did not seem very committed to New Orleans.
Of course not.
He sounded like he wanted to get paid. That's what he sounded like.
Well,
but I mean, he could get paid here more. Than
yeah, he can get paid here more than anywhere else.
But are they going to willing to pay him? I don't know.
Look, who is? Who is? I mean, it's a dangerous game, man. It's a dangerous game, bro. Because regardless of whether or not it's him or whether or not it's spelling somebody else.
But does Dell? Well, I'll ask you on air. We'll talk about this on air. So you're going to love this. I'm booking a World Cup guest first week of June. You'll love it.
Let's go. Let's go.
He's got a book out on the World Cup. I don't know if you ever met this guy, Stephen Ray.
No. Can't wait. Can't wait.
He wrote a book called Finn McCool's Football Club. Like he went. He's knowledgeable dude.
Nice.
He told me he's off to Central America on Thursday to see the Northern Ireland national team play Panama and Costa Rica.
Oh, yeah. Friendlies. Nice.
He'll be back in New Orleans June 4th for a week before heading to Europe.
Wonderful. Wonderful.
He's a cool dude.
That's wonderful. I can't wait.
He's got a book out called World Cup Fever.
Nice. Nice. That sounds awesome.
Yeah, I met him at a party, and I haven't heard from him since, but I think he's like Irish. He's an Irish dude.
Nice.
So the Browns are Hard Knocks. That's awesome. Baker Mayfield.
Uh-huh. Baker,
That would be a good one.
Jarvis. Oh, yeah.
Good. Got up at 3:30, dude. 3:30.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
I mean, it's a nightmare.
I think that's the point when sleeping pills are your friend.
That's a good point. Yeah, I would go ahead and call him. You know him. He's probably hungover from last night. Oh, okay. You want to do that first? Okay. Dunc and Holder back on a Tuesday, May 22nd, one day before my brother's birthday. I'm Jeff Duncan, coming to you live from the iHeart Studios in downtown New Orleans, Louisiana, the greatest city on the planet, joined by Clyde Burdan, who's back from a little vacation himself. Was it a vacation or just a getaway?
I'd say more of a getaway, but I mean, it was a nice getaway. It's going to be a protracted vacation-style schedule the next couple of months. Because, I mean, obviously you'll be here, everybody will be here, so just looking forward to taking a couple more days off later on in the month.
All right, we got an action-packed hour 2. Action-packed hour 1 is in the books, and right away, though, we want to go to the listener line. Brent on the West Bank is hanging on through the break, so I want to give Brent a chance to talk before we go to Larry Holder. Brent, what's going on, man? Doing good. What's happening? All right, Brent. Thanks for the call.
Thanks.
We understand. You're not happy. Look, a lot of people probably aren't happy, but it's just gotten so competitive now, college
It's not
baseball,
easy.
that I think it's hard to look at historical records and say what used to be, because more teams, I mean, Clive talked about last hour, there's just more teams putting their dollars, investing into those programs than there were 20, 25, even 10 years ago, and it's just way, way more competitive than it used to be. All right, let's switch gears and go to Sir Lawrence, Larry Holder, co-host of the Duncan Holder Show, who is standing by very patiently in Atlanta at the NFL owners meetings, and we want to get Larry's report. Larry, is anything going on today at the owners meetings, or is everybody arriving? What's the deal? And Larry, do we expect any kind of, I'm assuming David Tepper is going to be voted in. I guess if it got to this stage, it's going to be pretty much a rubber stamp for him to become the new Panthers owner. Yeah, it's like buying a house. You got straight cash, you're going to get the bid over someone that's going to try and put together a mortgage over 30 years. And that must be nice, man. David Tepper is obviously one of the richest people in the country. There was a lot of people bidding for that franchise, which I think is interesting. I mean, I don't know. We haven't talked about it much on the show. I know we had Joe Person on before, but I didn't know how Carolina would be viewed as a actual franchise. You know, they're not necessarily a high-profile franchise. That's not a bustling market there. I mean, it's obviously a very rich market with the bank industry that's located there, but you don't think of Carolina being one of these high-profile franchises, yet there were a lot of people wanted that team, you know, so it was interesting that he ends up winning out on the bid. No doubt. Yeah, it's a very exclusive club that you're joining. And Gail Benson, of course, is now a member of that club as the owner of the New Orleans Saints. And she's going to be making the presentation tomorrow to the NFL owners. Do you know anything more about that? I know we talked about it yesterday on the program, but do you know who all will be there representing not only the Saints, but representing the city of New Orleans for the Super Bowl bid? Yes. Yes.
It's about time someone did.
It's about time. We got our just desserts here. There we go. How can you deny this, NFL owners?
Seriously.
Deny this.
Tell Raj right now. It's like, hey, dude, we're going to play this. We're going to walk out of the room, drop the mic, call it a day.
I fully expect Trombone Shorty to be doing some type of musical entertainment at the 2024 Super Bowl. Don't you think? I mean, come on. Hey, look, and I also saw one other thing that just kind of caught my attention that Nashville is, I guess, the front runner to host the draft next year. I think that'll be somewhat interesting. They've really turned that into another revenue generating source for the NFL. Remember, it used to always be at Radio City Music Hall. That tradition went out the window, and now it's become a thing that cities like Nashville that probably aren't big enough or experienced enough to host a Super Bowl can get involved in and can bid on and get another big event. This thing's growing every year. Yeah, this is traditionally, this owners meeting you're at is usually kind of a sleepy little thing. I mean, it's kind of a procedural event, not a lot of media at, but I get the sense there's more happening at this one this year than has happened in past years. I mean, there's a few more things for media to cover. What have you experienced media contingent yet, or is everybody just getting into town today? Talking to Larry Holder, of course, co-host of the great Duncan Holder Show. And Larry, last thing before we let you go, because we know how things get crazy over there, do we have any sense, and I know this is a question that I would have trouble answering, but do you have any sense of timing tomorrow? I mean, do you any idea when this decision will go down? I know it's a very fluid agenda lots of times, and it can get derailed, but do you know when maybe the New Orleans presentation will be made? Right. And that's an early morning for you, Larry. So don't be out, in Buckhead tonight, painting the town.
Buckhead's not a bad place to be, though.
Yeah, well, we'll look forward to that. Hopefully we get a chance to check in with you tomorrow. I know it's going to be a busy morning for you and everyone over there for the New Orleans Super Bowl committee and the contingent that's over there. But we appreciate the report today, Larry, and we will talk to you at some point tomorrow. Hopefully it'll be a big day for New Orleans sports. All right, buddy.
All right.
Larry Holder, live from Atlanta, and probably on his way to Buckhead right now to get in a afternoon delight at one of the Buckhead establishments. I don't know. We'll see. But Larry is going to report tomorrow morning on this for us, and we expect it to be a big day for New Orleans.
Yeah, I mean, you can't. Of the many things that we've talked about here on the show, and specifically about the city, it's good to know. And of course, a lot of people are not going to get too excited until it's actually named, but I think
it's done.
It's done. It's
done.
Pretty much done. So you can pretty much circle February of 2024 as the next Super Bowl to be in New Orleans, which in a lot of people's minds is its rightful home almost, outside of really here in Miami.
Well, they just, the way they've changed up the process now, it wouldn't get to this point. It doesn't get before the ownership committee and get voted down. They wouldn't allow it to get that far.
Right.
So expect Arizona and New Orleans to knock off the 2023 and 24 Super Bowls tomorrow.
And it's only 2018 right now, so only, a few more years to go.
Like I said, Drew Brees will still be quarterback in the New Orleans Saints.
Yeah, right.
It'll be a hometown Super Bowl for the Saints. All right, let's take another break. When we come back, we'll talk a little New Orleans Pelicans. I want to get Clyde's thoughts on DeMarcus Cousins' interview last week with Mark Spears. That was a pretty wide-ranging interview, and he's a big key to the New Orleans Pelicans offseason, and a lot of unanswered questions about whether DeMarcus Cousins will be back in New Orleans. Dunc and Holder, Sports 1280, NOLA.com, the iHeartRadio app. Stay with us. Yes. Little rapper's delight. I sang that. I told you. I believe
I sang that once.
Dominated that. Hey, actually, my sister has asked for a request. She did. Okay. I'll give a little shout out. Okay. I have a great niece that I need to acknowledge. I love it. She called you? I can't believe it. Of course not. I'm trying to damn toast the show. I know, they're all back in Dallas. It's crazy. Yeah. Well, after I said it, I realized exactly. I said it, I was like, I better backtrack on that. Oh, God. At least Larry didn't hear it. I hope he didn't. Oh, God. I know, I did. I moved on quickly.
I was frantically searching the system for afternoon delights.
Oh, God, that would be great. Yeah, they actually have a Yacht Rock thing going to happen over on the North Shore in June I'm going to go to. Yeah, I just got like an email about it. Yacht Rock on the North Shore. I might drag Clyde over there. I don't know. Let me look it up here. I'll send it to you. I'll forward it to you.
I love getting dragged to things.
It's a Jefferson Parish thing.
No.
Earth Fest? What the hell's that? I'm sending to both of you guys. I know you're both going to want to go. But
Yacht rock on the lake. Oh yeah, dude, this is on
Right.
Dude,
no
this,
doubt.
this is on Lakeshore Drive, man.
What does that mean?
I mean, it's like down the street from me.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
I'm all over,
8001
man.
Lakeshore Drive, New
I'll be
Orleans.
over there. I'll
Dude,
be over
what?
there.
2 to 8?
It's going to be awesome. I wonder who's playing it, though.
Where yacht?
Is it Where Yacht?
Uh huh. Oh, where's my bike?
Boy, they just don't make music like that anymore.
When
No. No singing, Clyde.
the light of
Clyde
day. Wait, does he do that? Well, then I need to do it to make it better.
I don't think you can make this song better. This song is incredible.
Not that, no, like
Oh.
radio hosts who also are uber talented in, like, you know, the musical genres of the world and things like that.
That's in honor of Larry Holder, who is over in Atlanta.
Yeah, Mister. Yeah, he's gonna look for some afternoon what? You look for some what, Joe?
That's a drink. That's a cocktail. You just a little known cocktail called Afternoon Delight. And Larry is, of course, reported
That's
a
what
nice
it is.
report until I blew it there at the end about the festivities going on in Atlanta. He's going to be back tomorrow. He'll give us a call, hopefully, after New Orleans secures the 2024 Super Bowl. Well, I want to switch gears during this segment. And look, if you want to check in with us, I should give you our listener line. It's 504.
Not about Tulane baseball, though.
No.
Please don't call
Please
in for
don't.
that.
504-260-1280. Oh, if you want to talk about Tulane baseball.
Yeah, you can, but
Be
like, let's
about
talk about the games, all right?
But also want to talk a little bit about this DeMarcus Cousins interview that happened while I was over in France. Our good friend, Mark Spears, who has a very, very tight relationship with DeMarcus Cousins and his camp, got a one-on-one with DeMarcus last week and talked about his future in New Orleans and his speculative free agency and his rehab of his Achilles tendon rupture. And it was all very positive, everything that came out of the interview about Cousins' health status. Of course, we're getting this from one person, that's DeMarcus Cousins, so we don't really know anything more than what he's telling Mark, and we're trying to get Mark on the show later this week to kind of go into greater detail. But Cousins, it sounds like, is ahead of schedule in his rehab and is heading into a big offseason for him. He is a free agent and has a chance to really get paid. Unfortunately, he's coming off this huge injury, and I'm not sure how it's going to affect his contract negotiations on free agency, because there's a lot of uncertainty of whether he'll be back. He's saying he thinks he can be back for the start of training camp. That's insane.
That's incredible.
Everybody thought first of the year was
Yeah.
kind of the early prognosis. But
And
what
it should still probably be that.
yeah, and it probably will be. He's probably just being optimistic, and that's the way you got to be when you're facing something that big. But what stood out to me in the interview was he was asked point blank about free agency, and DeMarcus Cousins, like he should, and let me make it clear here, because I'm always going to support the player. You get a chance to get paid, you got to do it. And he wants to take advantage of this free agency period, so he's going to entertain, it sounds to me like, all offers, all comers. He likes New Orleans. He had a lot of great things to say about New Orleans and his teammates and Alvin Gentry. And look, he understands that they've got a special thing here, but he's also going to look out for DeMarcus Cousins, and that's what he should do. The teams look out for themselves, and the players have to look out for themselves. But Clyde, he didn't sound to me like he was 100% committed to coming back here. I mean, it sounds to me like he's going to take advantage of the best offer he gets. I don't think he'll sign with somebody that just comes with a boatload of money, though, that's not going to win. I mean, he wants to win, I think.
Well, this is the point in his career, I believe, that for him, he's staring down the point of two paths. And I think that choosing wisely for him is going to be not only a position of importance for where he stands legacy-wise, but for also where he goes now in terms of the rest of his career and how he is going to be portrayed for the. I mean, he's always going to be portrayed as a dominating force in the league when he is at the top of his game. We saw that last year. That's one of the quotes I plan on reading while we talk about this. But this is also probably one of the last times you're going to be able to say that you can make $200 and some odd million. It's a struggle because in the NBA, and just like it is in professional sports, like you just said, when it comes to a team that's going to want to throw at you a buttload of money, it's hard to turn that down, even looking at the situation of, let's say, like a Cleveland Browns or a Sacramento Kings or whoever it may be. If a team has a lot of money to throw at you, it's a hard thing to look at that and say, I'm not going to take that because my desires are over here to be a winner, to be a part of a team that is going to leave a lasting legacy, and to be a champion. Those two things don't often intersect in professional sports.
He's made a ton of money already.
Hey, look, Lil Wayne said it best, man. Too much money ain't enough money. And it's one of the craziest things I think I've thought about saying is that, like, you know what? If you think about it, you know, it's great to say you have, you know, a job that makes so much. But you're like, but some people could be like, well, you know, if I made just a little bit more, I could probably save a little bit more. Maybe I could start a college fund. If I made a little bit more, I could set aside a lot for, like, you know, 401k or retirement. It's never going to be one of those things unless you're just a gazillionaire where...
Well, he is a gazillionaire.
You know,
that's the whole point.
He's
not worried about getting his kids into college. He's not worried about his kids getting into college.
No, and I mean, that's the thing. He's going to be... But I mean, when we talk about this, when we talk about quarterbacks, Drew, you know, and I know you've said this about Anthony Davis too, is that they're worth more to their franchises than what they're actually getting paid. But that's a lot of money still.
But Clyde, after he went through what he went through in Sacramento, I just can't see him going back to some rebuilding situation. I don't care how much money they throw at him because those lessons he learned were painful there. I mean, when you get in a dysfunctional organization
with a dysfunctional owner,
yeah, I think there might be a happy medium there.
Yeah,
and I agree with you. Like, I don't think he's going to go back to a bottom feeder. I think he's going to go somewhere. Like, could I see him going to maybe a Dallas that has a good, strong owner
young core
that everybody likes? I could see that happening. But I just don't think he's going to go somewhere that is a complete, you know, dumpster fire.
Well, the biggest thing is a team like, let's say, like the Spurs or the Spurs, or the Trailblazers, or a team like that comes along. Because, I mean, you're talking about the biggest of the big teams are probably the Lakers, maybe the Knicks, whoever. He's going to get a lot of offers from a lot of teams. And then you're going to have the Pelicans in there. You know what you got with the Pelicans, but you could also possibly potentially get that with like a Kristaps Porzingis or a Karl Anthony Towns, or there's so many stars in this league that you can easily see him playing next to, getting that same kind of production that he got with the Pelicans. It may not just be that, but I mean, who knows? That's why this free agency is going to be so interesting to watch because of where he goes and how many teams go after him and how he views how he can be a part of a team that can be a winner.
All right, let's take another break and let's continue this conversation on the other side of this break because I think we've got a lot more to discuss on DeMarcus Cousins, Rajon Rondo, the future of the New Orleans Pelicans on Dunc and Holder, Sports 1280, NOLA.com, the iHeartRadio app. Stay with us. Yeah, I listened to the Old Crow Medicine show all the way back.
Really?
Well,
that's a lot of time.
Albums when I was just I found I gave up on the movies and documentaries, so then I put on music and I found Old Crow Medicine show. And
how long?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I agree. I'm on their bandwagon. But Old Crow Medicine Show was good, man. They got some good stuff.
How long is that flight? Where'd you fly into
hours,
out of?
Man, it was a nightmare.
What?
Well, flying back, I got a Condor airline flight for $500 from Paris, to New Orleans.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Wow.
But to do it, you got to go from Paris to Frankfurt, which is like New Orleans is here, Paris is here, Frankfurt is here. So you go over there, like a little hour and 45-minute flight. Then it's 11 and a half
All the
hours.
way. Good Lord.
I was going freaking stir crazy. I mean, and I was at a window seat.
Don't ever,
so,
dude.
I had
Don't
a
ever
guy.
don't ever go to Australia.
I've been to China, man.
Must say you've been to China. Yeah, you must say you've been to China. So yeah,
18 hours.
yeah. I'll say Australia's 15 from
18
Dallas.
hours. And you go over the earth.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was,
Yeah.
I was going stir crazy on that one too.
$18 months, an entire year. It's like, man,
Bienville probably took a little.
they're just like, thank God we see land. Thank God.
What's that about? Oh, I like that stuff. Sounds like. Sounds like it's right up your alley.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Sounds pretty cool. I hadn't even heard of it. Did you see, by the way, the email from Val?
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
Oh.
Thank you. Welcome back, Duncan Holder. Got about 20 minutes left in the program. Flying alongside Clyde Verdun and David Corbier. Larry Holder is on assignment in Atlanta, and we're talking New Orleans Pelicans and a little NBA action. We'll talk NBA playoffs as well. But you know, we're exactly about a month away from the NBA draft, and this looks to me like one of the best drafts we've ever seen. I mean, there are a lot of top prospects, and there's a lot of Louisiana spice to this draft. And it goes back to things we've talked about in the program before about I always lament the state of college basketball in our state and the fact that we don't have any dominant programs or regular March Madness participants. And yet here I am looking at this draft, and there's 4 Louisiana products that could go in the first and second round. And the only one that has a Louisiana college connection is Melvin Frazier at Tulane, who's looking at like late first round, early second round, it sounds like. And I noticed the measurements. One of my favorite things to do every year is to talk about measurements, because it always drives me crazy. This could be another soapbox, by the way, Dave. The fact that players, they get measured before they go to the NBA draft. They get measured before they go to the NFL draft. No one is slipping through the cracks here, and your fake height, your fake weight is going to go undisclosed. So I never have understood why colleges, you might know better because you were at LSU.
Yeah.
Why people put down fake heights and weights. I don't understand. Just put down how big you are, how tall you are. Because eventually you're going to have to, it's going to come home to roost. You're going to go to one of these combines.
Also true.
And you're going to get measured.
Yeah.
And they're going to put you on a scale and put a height, and you're not going to slip past them at being an inch and a half shorter than what you said. And so Melvin Frazier actually came out, his height was about what I thought it would be. Let me see here. And the other thing that drives me berserk while I'm on a roll here is the fact they measure in the NBA, all these basketball people, they measure you with shoes on. That drives me berserk. That's not how tall you are. Measure how tall you are, not how tall you are in shoes. I know When you're on the court,
When you're on the court, you're wearing
the
sneakers,
shoes.
right?
It doesn't matter. It's how tall you are. When you go to your doctor, they don't measure you in your shoes. They measure you.
Thank you.
Without your shoes on.
Keep it going, man.
NFL players, football players get measured with their pads on to see how heavy they are? No. That's what they're wearing on the field. Why not, Clyde? It's the same logic. It drives me crazy.
Good point.
How tall are you? It's not how tall you are in high heel stiletto shoes. It's how tall you are.
How did we get here?
Because they do it every year in this
get here?
combine. They measure them without shoes and with shoes. Forget the with shoes thing. We don't need that. It's not how tall you are. You are how tall you are. It's like Bill Parcells. You are what you are.
You are what your record says you are.
It's not how tall you are with your shoes on. It's just drives me berserk.
So Melvin Frazier is how tall?
So Melvin Frazier, I'm looking up real quick here. So
say it.
I'm pretty damn mad. You're right.
Say it.
He was 6'4.5".
Okay.
6'4.5" without shoes, which is what he is. He's 6'6" with shoes on. No, he's 6'4.5". He's not 6'6". He's not 6'6". Just like you're not an inch and a half taller with shoes on. So the other players, they're Louisiana ties here. I thought this was interesting. Aaron Holiday, the brother of Drew Holiday, 5'11" and 3/4. Not even 6 feet. That's how tall he is. That's how tall he is.
So he'd be six. So he'd be right at 6 foot in the shoes.
And I guarantee you, at UCLA, he was not listed at 5'11".
I'm going to look though.
I guarantee you he was not listed that tall. Okay, the kid from Cincinnati. What's his name? The kid from another Louisiana native, and he's looking at maybe a potential first-round draft pick. Jacob Evans, shooting guard, small forward. He's 6'4.25". Another swing man, very similar to Melvin Frazier in that he's a defensive stopper.
Aaron Holiday, 6'1".
6'1". He's 5'11" and 3/4.
So they're going by shoe height.
Yes.
So here we go.
Standing on a phone book somewhere is what they're measuring him with now. It drives me berserk. How tall are you? I'm this tall with platform heels. This is how tall I am.
We're not going to Studio 54, Jeff.
It's the point is, tell me how tall you are. Then we'll figure out. I mean, you're gonna obviously logically say he's probably a little bit taller with shoes on, but that's not how tall you are. And I don't know why basketball has bought into this whole thing of measuring them with their shoes on. The other kid I wanted to find out, what's the kid's name from Texas A&M, Clyde? Remember the kid from Shreveport area? He's a big kid.
Yeah,
You're blanking out too.
I'm blanking out too.
His name's Williams or something like that. He's expected to be a pretty high first-round draft pick, and he's another Louisiana native, another guy that slipped away because we don't follow basketball as strongly as we should here, and so they go places where basketball has greater interest, and we need to keep these kids home at these programs like LSU, Tulane, UNO, all the good programs we have in the state that are trying to build something. If they want to get back to the NCAA tournament, they have to keep these kind of kids in the backyard. But the NBA draft, getting back to what my original point was before I went crazy.
Robert Williams,
yes, thank you. Before I went off on that subject, this draft has like 5 or 6, looks like future big men. I mean, there's a lot of 6'11", 7-foot guys, even with their shoes off. That this could be, I think, a game-changing draft for a lot of these franchises. That's why so many people were tanking at the end of the year, because this draft is so deep at the top.
Yeah, I mean, it's strange though, because obviously we've seen the last few years in the NBA draft. It's been about scoring. It's been about guard play. It's been about guys who can play out on the wings, can just pour it in from the outside, and can just light it up offensively on stat sheets. But now I think you're starting to get to the point, and I really almost credit this with guys like Joel Embiid and Karl Anthony Towns and guys like that. The game is starting to get back to trying to have mismatches with big men, and I think you're going to see that with with Ayton this year, with wherever he goes. It's kind of harkening back into an era where you're looking at teams being better and being bigger.
I think it's going to cause
down low.
Well, here's the point I'm making. I don't mean to cut it off, but like AD has an incredible advantage right now because he's such a unique athlete at his size.
Right.
But it looks to me like there's a lot of guys coming in the league that are AD style builds.
Right.
You know, those kind of guys, Miles Turner kind of guys, 6'10", 6'11", that I think will help match up against one of the true freaks in the game, and Anthony Davis.
Because, I mean, not just him, but, like, you know, Kristaps Porzingis,
Yes.
guys like that. You know, these really, you know, very strongly these guys who just have the
Agile
ability,
bigs.
agile bigs who can shoot threes, who can play at the 4, play at the 5, cause mismatches for your true big men, cause mismatches for your guys on the outside. I mean, literally, they are just players who just can dominate a game and can take it over. And that's the thing too. It's like if you're going to bring in guys to play defense on them, then that's great. I just don't know how you're going to be able to find another Anthony Davis or Kristaps Porzingis that has the shooting touch, the shooting ability, and just almost a weird style like big man guard play that can say, I'm not going to take you inside, but come out here and try to guard me, or then I'm going to switch off because the way we have our lineup set up, then I'm going to come in, bang down low with you, and still be able to get fouled and go to the free throw line and make the shot.
No, I think this is going to be a game-changing draft. I mean, you know, the past few years have been. I mean, last year ended up being a better draft than we thought with Jason Tatum's come on.
Yeah.
Donovan Mitchell's had a huge year out in Utah. There's been some players that can, you know, make a difference. But this year, more than ever, I think has a chance to be a breakout draft, and that's exactly a month away coming up in the NBA draft. All right, one more break. When we come back, we'll wrap it up and talk some New Orleans Saints. Try and break down their prospects here going into OTAs. Right here on Dunc and Holder, Sports 1280, NOLA.com, the iHeartRadio app. Stay with us. So what's the name? I can't remember the name of the guy that everybody says is gonna be the number one pick. He's not even he's not even an American dude.
Wait, what? Oh, Milicic or something like that?
Luka Doncic.
Doncic, yes. Mm-hmm. Supposed to be the next European hotshot.
Luka Doncic sounds like an afternoon delight. Where do you get an afternoon delight? Yeah, this draft could be, you could go down about like 8 guys. There's big men everywhere.
Yeah.
Bamba. Then you got the little guard from Oklahoma, Trae Young.
Mm-hmm. Which is kind of the most interesting and then like pseudo frustrating part because everybody's been so used to and still wants to talk about guards, but like Trae Young isn't even one of the best guards. I mean, he's just one who can score, and it's almost like, do you take a chance on him or do you take a chance on one of these big guys who can actually get in right away and actually start doing things?
The Pelicans have 1 second-round pick, and that's it.
Yeah, that's it.
Jeez. The draft like means nothing since they got AD. There's been almost an afterthought.
Yeah.
I love it. Earthfest. I'll be out there. Not.
Not.
I can't contain myself. Interactive displays. What the hell does that mean? Right. Yes. Welcome back. Little hat tip to Morton Anderson, little vol beat. Jeff Duncan here alongside Clabberdan, Dave DeCorbier. And before I get into some Saints talk, real quick, I've got an interesting column, Clad, coming up this week that was pointed out to me by Doug Miller of New Orleans Saints. I got to give a shout out to Doug for giving me this story idea. Michael Arnaud is a golfer he's not even on the PGA Tour. He's on the Web.com Tour.
Mm-hmm.
Had an incredible tournament this past weekend. He shot a pair of sub 30 scores on the front nine at this tournament and won his first event, the BMW Charity Pro-Am event. Huge achievement for him. He ends up winning $125,000.
Nice
and more
payday.
importantly, gets exempt now. He's on the Web.com Tour for this year and next year, but now puts him into really close range of getting his PGA Tour card next year. He just has to kind of finish strong in some of these other tournaments, but he shot at 27 on the front nine, and then turned around and shot a 28 on Sunday on the front nine.
That's not even fair.
Smoking.
That's not fair.
And the thing that's crazy about the story, Michael, I talked to him this morning. He was on his way to another tournament. That's the life of these PGA golfers and these pro golfers going from one tournament to the next.
Mm-hmm.
But Michael did not even know he was going to be in this tournament until the morning of the first round. He was on the also eligible list. He was an alternate, and he got the last spot in the field, and then goes out and blitzes the field, wins the tournament, and didn't even know if he was going to be in the tournament until 24 hours beforehand. So crazy turnaround. I talked to Michael this morning and have a column up on NOLA.com about him and his path to this incredible story. And he said he's been doing interviews. His phone's blown up. Doing interviews tomorrow morning on the Golf Channel. So if you're up watching the Golf Channel Morning Drive show, Michael will be on there kind of recapping his storyline. So just shows you, man, sometimes you got to perseverance, and you got to just hang in there and keep grinding out, finally get your shot.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's an incredible run, though. But I mean, we've had, or at least we've seen the last couple of weeks, some incredible golf runs here, both on the PGA Tour and otherwise.
Yeah, it's a great story, and very happy for Michael, who lives over in the Mandeville, Covington area.
A lot of great courses to play out there, for sure.
Well, he plays regularly at Beauchene.
Oh, okay, well
and,
then, naturally.
He's originally from Southeast Texas, Orange, Texas. But his wife, as a lot of people in the area might know, is Ashley Rodriguez from WWL. And Michael, of course, finally being rewarded for all of his efforts on the tour. So congratulations to him and to Ashley. And hopefully pays off for him down the road and gets his PGA Tour card, because he's been beating the bushes for a while on tour. Now I want to switch gears real quick to the New Orleans Saints, because they are starting OTAs today, and this is the time of year when they're basically introducing the playbook to all the young players on the roster, all the newcomers, the free agents that are coming in. This is their first installation in the playbook, and what's going on right now is a lot of learning. A lot of guys with their heads spinning, a lot of young players being introduced to the verbiage for the first time. The plays are basically the same, probably a lot of the same plays they ran in college, but they're called something differently, so the language barrier is something to overcome. They'll get this installation once. They basically just go through the entire playbook and force feed. It's like a fire hose of information to these players once, and then they'll come back and do it again, probably before they break in July, and everybody takes time off. Then they'll come back and do it a couple times again in training camp. So by the time they start the season, everybody will have been through everything about 3 or 4 times.
Right.
But it's a lot to learn in a short period of time, and there's nobody slowing down for you. You got to learn. If you get behind, you're not going to catch up.
Yeah, I mean, this is why this time of the year is so important. I mean, I know when it comes to OTAs, mostly people think about who's not there, who's not showing up to OTAs, why they're not showing up, and whatever. At the end of the day, this is an important time for guys in that midway to fringe area to really cement what they want to do, or how involved they want to be in the aspect of going into training camp, where everything is then on the line. You get 4 games and multiple practices to show your value to each team, whether or not you can be on the main roster, or at least if you're on the practice squad, be a practice squad guy that can come up to the main roster if guys get hurt. But yeah, you're right. It's one of those things where OTAs is such an important time for a lot of these guys who aren't just really the rookies and the guys who were drafted, but like some of these veteran guys too who are learning new terminology and things like that, just to be able to be consistently in and used by the coaching staff, of showing your competency level of being able to remember all this and then being able to go out there and enact it and execute it.
Yeah, and you got to be in shape too. I remember, and Sean Payton tells this story a lot when he references this time of year and how you can't make quick judgments, you can't write players off. Marcus Colston, when he came in at this time for his rookie minicamp after the draft, came in from Hofstra, looked awful. He said he was in terrible shape. His head was swimming. They didn't know what they had. They thought they basically wasted a pick, even though it was a 7th-round pick. They felt like he had no shot early on. Now, they weren't giving up on him that soon, but the point was he came back. He was in better shape for training camp. Things started to click, and then the light bulb went off for him about midway through training camp. A couple of preseason games under his belt.
Did it.
And they knew they had something, and they traded Dante Stallworth because they felt so good about Marcus Colston. So it just shows you can't let these early impressions solidify in your mind some kind of opinion, because it takes certain players, different lengths of time to learn, and once that light bulb goes off, you can really see what kind of talent they have. So these judgments is a long evaluation process, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
And it's just now starting for a lot of these young players.
So don't get too overhyped about this first week, because there are many other weeks and there's so much more that needs to be done between now and then really getting into training camp. So what you're going to start seeing and hearing now through OTAs is just really about trying to get guys in on the ground floor and then trying to build them up to when you get to late July and going forward.
All right, well, that's it for today's show. I want to thank Bob Remy, sports historian, for visiting earlier, giving us his thoughts on Billy Cannon. I want to thank, of course, our great co-host Larry Holder for checking in from Atlanta. And we'll be back again tomorrow. We'll have another action-packed show touching on the NFL owners' meetings and potentially the Super Bowl coming to New Orleans in 2024. And before I get out of here, I want to say congratulations to my wonderful niece Sarah and her husband James on the birth of Sally Naomi on March 9th. I am a great uncle, and today is James' birthday, so happy birthday, James, and to the entire family over there in Grapevine, Texas. I love you all, and happy birthday. Thanks for joining us again. I'm Duncan Holder, Sports 1280 NOLA.com, the iHeartRadio app. We'll be back tomorrow.